Watching breaking news here on MSNBC, if you're just joining us, these are pictures from Chicago's O'Hare Airport, one of about 6 or 7 international airports where protests have grown throughout the day here on a Saturday, very reminiscent, at least at this moment, of what had happened exactly a week ago during the Women's March that not only started in Washington, D.C., but was in many cities across the country. These protesters are standing up against an executive order that was signed by President Trump on Friday at around noon Eastern. And since then, there have been individuals, refugees, and immigrants that have been detained at various airports. And I mentioned again, we're watching 6 or 7. This happens to be Chicago, watching Boston, we're watching New York, we're watching Dulles in Virginia, we're watching San Francisco, we're watching Dallas-Fort Worth as well. It's been a very busy day for airport security. We have had no reports as of yet of violence or issues related to security. I want to take you to Chicago's O'Hare Airport, where Fiona McEntee is one of those that set up a table. She is a lawyer, and Fiona, you're there because you want to offer assistance to those who may have been detained there at O'Hare Airport. We understand there's at least 10 that have been detained. What are you hearing in terms of numbers?
So as far as we know, 15 people that have been detained in secondary detention. There were an additional 3 people who've been released, but they're just the numbers that we have.
Okay, it looks like we are having some technical difficulties as we were there with Fiona McEntee at O'Hare's International Airport. And if we can get that connection back up, we'll go straight back to her, because these are the individuals that are assisting those who are detained, family members who have questions, so that they may be able to communicate with their loved ones, their friends, their family members, and deal with the legal implications vis-a-vis the immigration process, ICE, and the other organizations that are relevant to those who are being detained, and the process to find out whether they can be released or, in some cases, returned to the country of origin. Okay, we're going to stand by to see if we can get back to Fiona McEntee, a lawyer there at O'Hare's International Airport. I want to go back to Dallas-Fort Worth, where Chris Jose has been speaking with. Moments ago, Chris, we had the opportunity to hear from one family member who was very concerned, very emotional, really, about not being able to have his parents enter through those doors that are probably not too far away from you, to walk through as they have many times before, as he was describing, and his parents who felt very uneasy and perhaps just as emotional as he was when he was speaking with you. What's the sense of emotion that you are getting from those you've spoken with there?
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty out here, Richard. I got to tell you, we spoke to 3 families, 3 of the 9 families who were detained here this afternoon. Again, we know that 6 individuals are still detained. 3 have been 2 from Iran and 1 from Syria. You mentioned that the student from SMU, he mentioned to us earlier that his family has been here multiple times to North Texas to visit. And from what it sounds like, they're going to be heading back. They're going to be heading back to Saudi Arabia. They're from build the wall. They are from they live in Saudi Arabia, but originally are from Syria. Again, you're also seeing some folks. You're also seeing some folks here that are in support of President Trump's executive order. You heard one gentleman just come up to the mic and say, build the wall. But it's safe to say out here, outside the international gate at DFW Airport, I would say easily more than 400 people now out here. You can hear the chants, more people coming through here. And it doesn't look like these folks are going to be going away anytime soon. We had the opportunity to meet with one family. They were reunited. That woman, who is from Syria, she has her green card, and she was reunited with her daughter here in North Texas about 2 hours ago. We should mention that mother from Syria, she doesn't plan on going back to her country anytime soon. She's here now. She's through the gates, and in fear of not being able to return here to the United States, she plans on staying here in North Texas. But I got to tell you, Richard, as the crowd continues to grow here, again, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of question marks for the families still waiting for their loved ones who are currently detained. Richard?
Chris, this is something you know well. They're reporting in Texas and in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that is the growing immigrant populations of that state. It rivals, for those who are counting, according to Pew, the immigrant population of New York. People would not think that of of Texas. And when you look at Dallas and you look at San Antonio and you look at Houston, the immigrant communities there are very, very large. And this executive order that came out on Friday is something that, if you look at the reports, you look at social media, you look at anecdotal evidence from those that I've spoken with, this executive order has hit them at home as well, whether they are from the 7 countries that are involved with this executive order, whether they are refugees or not. Give us a sense of the immigrant communities there and how they're reacting to what is happening not only at the airport, but more broadly, the reaction to the executive order.
Yeah, they're upset. They're fearful. They're fearful that their families will have to go back to countries like Syria and Sudan, for example. You know, Richard, I got to tell you, North Texas is extremely divided in some ways. You look at Collin County, which is very diverse, a melting pot in many ways, but they were very pro-Trump during the election. You look at Dallas County, for example, they were for Secretary Clinton during the election. So depending on who you talk to out here, it's very divided. But as far as the immigrant community is concerned, the refugee community is concerned, there are quite a few here in North Texas, and they are fearful. They're worried. They're worried that their families or their loved ones will be sent back home. They're not welcome. They feel like they're not welcomed here in North Texas. That's not only from talking to folks here at the airport, that's just from being on the ground and talking to these folks throughout the election cycle, and also just since President Trump signed the executive order.
KXAS's Chris Jose, an old friend who used to report there in Denver, Colorado. Thanks for your reporting there. Stand by. We'll get back to you. I want to head back to Fiona McEntee in Chicago, where we're also watching the result of what you were saying here. And thanks to Fiona McEntee, a lawyer there who set up a table, I guess, right behind you over what would be your right shoulder. And we lost contact earlier. One of the questions that I was asking is how many. You were just saying 13 from what you heard that are detained, and then we lost connection. Please continue with what you were telling me before.
So there are 13 that we know of that are still in secondary inspection. 3 people were released. There were 16 in total. Now, these are just people who we know are in there because their family members came to meet them to pick them up at the airport. These are not refugees that are coming to the States. These are legal permanent residents. They're green card holders. They're U.S. citizens. There's a U.S. citizen child who's 18 months old who's been in secondary inspection for over 5 hours.
What is the reasoning that they are receiving or that you are hearing in representation of them as to why they're being held if they're permanent residents with green cards?
Because they are also nationals of one of the countries. They're national, in this case, the client, the family is from Iran originally, and that is, as far as we are aware, the only reason that they are still in secondary inspection.
Okay, so that is inconsistent with the executive order. The executive order says that those who would be immigrants coming to the United States will no longer be allowed in the future. In this case, they have legal documentation but are still being held. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The clients that we've been speaking with are all legal permanent residents, and as I said, some of them have U.S. citizen family members with them, children, and there is a lady who's 81 years old. She's in a wheelchair. Her family have been here waiting for her. for hours, for like 6 hours.
What are you hearing from those who are interacting with you? And if you could tell me which institutions, governmental institutions, are interfacing with you, and what is each one of them telling you?
So, to be honest, we've had very little contact with any of the agencies. So, CBP, which is the Customs and Border Patrol, are here, but they're not allowing us to speak to the clients. We have no access to them. And similarly, the family members don't know what's going on either, because they are not able to contact their family members that are here waiting for them.
What are those? So you're speaking then with the detainees themselves. Is that correct? You're either texting or you're calling them. Is that what you're hearing?
No, we have not been able to get in touch with the detainees. We are only speaking to family members. So a flight came in from Iran at like 1:30 p.m. today, and the family members are still waiting for. This man is waiting for his U.S. citizen baby who's 18 months old for hours, and we don't know what's going on.
How long have you been there, Fiona, and how has it changed there behind you at Chicago O'Hare? It's always a crazy place, but this is certainly a different day.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, obviously we wish we were not here under these circumstances. We all came out, a group of attorneys, first at probably 1 o'clock. And since then, you know, the crowd has grown, the attorneys have grown, everyone's filing emergency motions, class action lawsuits. Now we have a big group of protesters who are here trying to just express their frustrations. You know, a lot of I can hear refugees, but the people that we're talking to are not refugees. So there's many issues going on here. So we just want to get the word out and let people know what's happening on the ground here. How
many lawyers are you part of right now, and what practices do all of you undertake typically?
So there are about 40 of us. I actually am an immigration attorney by trade. I've been practicing immigration law for about 10 years. The group here is, you know, just a mix of people from, you know, non-profit firms. There's also attorneys from big law firms. Some do immigration, some do, you know, employment law, litigation. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but we're all coming here together to really be the best advocates that we can be for these people that really need us.
This is something you know well then, Fiona. When you've had the opportunity in the last 24 hours, I know it's been busy, and you were looking at the executive order that came from President Trump, and as you read through it, what was your reaction to the details? And I understand there weren't necessarily a lot as we look at immigration law, because immigration law can be very extensive, but just based on what you saw in that executive order, what then were you suggesting to your clients?
I mean, well, the first thing we're saying to clients is not to travel internationally if they are also a citizen of one of the countries on the list. You know, it's just so disturbing how this has been implemented. The fact that it's been, you know, this additional screening, and we're not talking an hour or two. We're talking like 6 hours that these people have been in secondary inspection, and the lack of communication, and, you know, the fear. And the fact that, like, I'm a mother of 2 young children, and I know how it feels to travel internationally with kids. And, you know, you want to go straight home and put your kids to bed. You just want to be in an airport for 7 hours plus, you know, not knowing whether you're going to be admitted to your home. Crazy.
You said you mentioned your children. You as an immigration lawyer, how do you describe to them what you do and maybe why you're there today? Because there's a lot of folks watching this who are part of immigrant families and wondering how this might affect them. Again, to be very specific, the executive order says no more refugees. That's at least at the moment right now. That program suspended. Number 2, 7 countries on that list. You can, if you're an immigrant from there at the moment, they're saying no. That's according to the executive order. But yet there are those, as I was speaking with another reporter, who are immigrants or part of immigrant families that see another story really being told right now. How are you hearing that very dynamic where you're at?
I mean, in terms of expressing to our children, my daughter's 3 and my son is 1, you know, and I just told her, Rose, Mama needs to go to the airport to help people. You know, there's no other way to tell a 3-year-old what is happening. I mean, to be honest, I can barely get my head around it myself. You know, it's really shocking. And I'm from Ireland, so I am an immigrant as well, and I'm a proud US citizen, and this is not the America that I know. You know, people don't travel all the way across the world to live in a country where there's this hatred and discrimination.
So then how do you know, Fiona, as an immigrant to this country from Ireland, that history goes back, as you know, centuries to the United States. The context of this sort of situation today, in your studies, is there some sort of precedent that you might be able to allude to from what you know and your expertise and your research and your studying in academia?
I'm sorry, like an analogy to the current situation?
Yes. I know it's hard to hear. Yes, an analogy.
I mean, I can't think of anything like this. You know, it's unprecedented. I mean, it's like discrimination based on national origin, and, you know, there is no clear justification for it. You can't blanketly say it's in the interest of national security when, I mean, these poor families are arriving and they're being, like, in secondary inspection. They're not going to call it detention, but that's effectively what it is, for 6 and 7 hours. And we're talking about US citizen babies, an 18-month-old child.
Fiona McEntee, they're a lawyer on site there in Chicago O'Hare, trying to assist those who've been detained, what we understand to be 13. Thank you so much. Now a short break.